Okay. Welcome to the City Advertising Promotion Commission Workshop, July 17, 2024, 4 p.m., Rica Springs Auditorium. This is a reminder, this is a workshop, not a meeting. No decisions are made today. We won't be voting on anything. This is just to focus on having an open discussion about topics that we have previously decided on. I'm Steve Holofield, Chair, and we'll open it up, start the workshop. So auditorium rental structure. Give it to Mr. Mike.
Thank you. Well, we've wrestled with this one for a very long time. In fact, when I first came to Eureka Springs in 2011, we were wrestling with how to do this particular task for the auditorium. And it's taken a long time for me to basically try to wrap my arms around this thing and understand where we are. The last juncture that we had, which was not an official vote, but it was more of a recommendation, is that we come up with this flat fee structure of $3,500 to rent the facility. That went over pretty much like a lead balloon. The people that were paying less than that, or people who weren't paying hardly anything for it, started, barking, saying, well, that's not fair. So the reality is, how do you take this building and how do you say, well, it's going to be either an economic driver or an economic loss? And I'm going to tell you right now, it's kind of a twisted and very precarious dynamic that we're dealing with. Number one, in the history of the auditorium, it has never made money. It probably never will make money. So we might as well just go ahead and get that out of our systems. It's not going to be a money driver. However, what we have to look at, and I gave you a little bit of a sheet here, some of the initial considerations of how it came to these conclusions. Number one, overpriced for locals. Locals at one point were paying either nothing, which some still do because they're grandfathered in, or they were paying a minimum of, at one time published on our website, of $750 if they were a 501c3 organization, which is fine. The other one was overpriced for promoters with less than desirable ticket sales. Point being, an act might cost $35,000 a promoter. They spend $5,000 in advertising. They come back in and they put a full spread of food on for the band that night, and then they sell 200 tickets, and then we charge them $3,500, and they lose thousands and thousands of dollars. So consequently, their taste for the auditorium wanes if in fact they even want to come back. Well, what I wrestle with, is there a one price fits all? In other words, is there a price for nonprofits? Is there a price for promoters? Is it going to be equitable across the board? Should promoters pay more than nonprofits? And if they do, why should they? So I went back and I started looking at some of our core tenets of the CAPC. And one of the things that we do is we provide market support funds for organizations that want to put on events in Eureka Springs. We fund them up to $5,000 just to go ahead and have their event. We ask them up front, how many people do you think you're going to bring into the event or the weekend or the festival? And they will guesstimate anywhere from 200 to 2,000. We don't know really what the return on the investment is, but yet we'll go ahead and give them $5,000. We pay their invoices. We make that assumption that that has made market impact. That's what we call market support funds. We've been doing that for a long time. This year, we've got $100,000 in the bank just to go ahead and help promote events. Yet, we haven't spent any money helping a promoter up to this point. Now, what should we be doing with this? So let's just go ahead and take another step at this, and this is why I came up with this consideration. What should the trade-off be? And if you look at number 4, flat fee, $3,500, doesn't make a difference who you are. A structured fee, depending on some sort of a scale that we devise. Consideration for economic support, and we'll get into this one. And also the consideration of the 3% CAPC tax. So let's go ahead and take a look at the screen. And this is pricing schedule number A that I've devised. What's it cost to operate the auditorium? Let's take a show that's got 900 people that show up for it. Our ushers, we have to have at least 2 ushers per 100 people. That's $25 an hour. So we've got 3 hours tied up, that's $1,350. Our security demands are such right now that we have to have at least one security person per 100 people. So in other words, if we have 900 people here, that's 9 security individuals. They are $50 an hour. That's another $1,350. We have to have at least a couple of people in concessions. Well, that's $25 an hour, so there's, guess what, another $150. And then you have the full-time staff, pardon the typo there, which basically says that we have people here such as Danielle and myself or Caitlin or whatever, and then we have our utilities, $1,500 and so or more, and we may have to have some help in the auditorium that evening, depending on who that is. So it's costing us about $6,300 just to put on a show for 900 people. That doesn't count every other thing that goes into that particular show. So, as you can see just by this particular slide, if you'll change it over, guys, this is what the front of the house looks like when we're getting ready to have a show. We've got our staff here, we've got our personnel, we have a bunch of people on the payroll right now to make this show work. Next slide, please. We have 986 seats in the auditorium. And I say classic rock, country concert, doesn't make any difference if it's a comedian or it's a classical music event. That's 986 guests that perhaps we have. Let's go back to market support funds and how we devised that little formula. We asked them, how long are you going to be in town? Could be a day, could be 1.5 days, could be 2 days. So for just fun, let's call it 1.5 days you're in town. That represents about $77,280 in lodging at an average of $115 a night. Now, that's going to vary depending on where you stay. 1.5 days in town for food. Well, that's approximately $96,000 in food. Okay? Now, given the fact that I know for a fact if I eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner in Eureka Springs, I've spent more than $65, I'll guarantee you. Next slide. That's an economic impact to our city up and down the street on Spring Street of $173,415. That's how much money gets spent in town if we have people say 1.5 days to a concert. It doesn't make any difference what the ticket price was. It could be free to get in. They're here, they're spending money at our restaurants, they're spending money in our lodges. Next slide. That's an economic impact for the CAPC of $5,202 just in 3% sales tax revenues. It's $5,000 in revenues that we've generated just on that event alone. Now, take one step back, we didn't even count the concession sales. All right, so what should we do? A couple of things here. That's where we have a plan A and a plan B to at least talk about initially. $1,000 will be required right up front when you book the auditorium. Doesn't make a difference if you're a nonprofit, you're a promoter. It's $1,000 down. The balance of the deposit will be refunded on settlement, and we'll go to the next slide, and I'll tell you how we came up with this little statistic here. It's just based upon a fact that if you have 900 seats and you're still trying to get $3,500, that's basically $388 per 100 seats, or $3.88. It's pretty simple. So whether you're profit or nonprofit, you're going to pay $3.88 a seat, up to 900. And that would be the $3,500 that we're trying to get. Let's go to the next slide. So this chart is a little bit more self-revealing. It will tell you that you can see from 1 to 100, $388 all the way down to 900 is $3,500. It's a pretty simple chart. So what happens with $1,000? Well, in this scenario, we will refund you the balance. In other words, you'll pay $388 if you only sell 100 seats, and then we'll give you the remainder of your money back. Now, this is not rocket science. It's just a way to take a look at a problem that we have in trying to determine what should a fair fee structure be for the auditorium. So I'll go ahead and open this one up for at least a little bit of examination, and then we'll take a look at Plan B. Thoughts, concerns, questions, criticisms? Feel free.
This is
Sure.
I know this is what you and I had discussed because we thought this was probably the most fair. I haven't looked at the other one yet, so
We'll get there.
So I'm interested in that one. But I
Okay.
know this is one that you and I, and even Danielle and I had sort of discussed too.
This is the way that the theater looks if you want to take a look at the stage so you can see. Now, the reason that this is a factor of 388 or actually 389, we have 986 seats. It doesn't make any difference where you sit in the auditorium. It's the same seat price. Front row, back row, any row you want. You're going to be in one of those positions right there. Now, the reason for the seating chart, obviously, is we have promoters that sell tickets at different levels. We'll have a VIP section. That might be a $65 ticket, a $75 ticket, but the balcony might be a $25 ticket. It just depends on where you are. Again, we don't really care what the promoter makes. Doesn't make a difference to us. Doesn't make a difference what the nonprofit makes, if they make any money at all. What we're concerned about is how do we equitably charge the fee. Okay. Based upon that, Ron or Dave, let's go to Plan B now.
So basically what I'm seeing is the first plan's going to be a refunded deposit regardless. The second one's going to be non-refundable.
Right.
That's the two differences I'm seeing.
We'll pull it up here in just a sec on Plan B. As soon as I turn off my screen and everybody else can get to it too. Plan B is essentially the same except for one thing. In fact, we'll kind of rush through Plan B here because there's a little bit of repetition here. So go ahead and let's drill down to about slide number 6, gang, if you would be so kind. Okay. Same thing. 6, which is reserve the odd. Let's go back one more. Forward. Let's go forward, please. There we go. Okay, reserve the odd. $1,000 deposit at booking, profit or nonprofit, balance of deposit refunded at settlement. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And this is the same thing, only this time what we're doing is we're basically saying it's $3.89 per 100 seats with a minimum of 257 seats. In other words, we're going to keep the $1,000. And we're going to go ahead and take the $1,000 and we're going to give you 257 seats for that $1,000. You don't get anything back. Now, you will, however, on the next scenario, if you'll flip that slide, gang. So from 1 to 256, it's $1,000, and then we break it down from 257 to 299, et cetera, until we again get down to 900 seats, and then it's $3,500. So that way, the auditorium will always keep $1,000. There'll be no refund, and if you can only sell 256 seats, well, you still got a pretty good deal for $1,000. So that's really the way Plan B is structured. And again, my biggest concern was how do we equitably do that across the board for whomever it is. And I have no problem telling any nonprofit that comes in for the first time that it does take $1,000 at least to turn the lights on. And then you still get the full benefits of what we provide anybody based upon the criteria you think is going to come into the auditorium. Now, how do we gauge that? We gauge it initially because we can take a look at what ticket sales typically are going to be for an event. For instance, Thunderticks will let us drill down into, for instance, Little Wings Productions and say, oh gosh, they've sold 750 seats. That gives us, Danielle in particular, the wisdom to say, well, we're going to need 7 ushers, we're going to need 6 cops, we're going to need this and this and this. So we know in advance what's going to happen. It's not a big surprise day of. The surprise day of would be, however, if it's a nonprofit that doesn't sell tickets but just wants people to show up, then we've got to put a skeleton crew together just to go ahead and make that event happen. Skeleton crew is always going to be a couple of people with concessions, probably at least 4 ushers. We'll have a minimum of 2 security people here, maybe more. The reason we say maybe is because we know if we have to call 911, they're here in split seconds if we need them, so that's always a good backup for us. So we're always going to be secured. The other thing is full-time staff, there's always going to be a minimum of 2 of us here. Doesn't make a difference if it's Saturday or Sunday or the middle of the night. That's what our staff does. So we have the Plan B and the Plan A. Plan A is the one that's a little more liberal, if you will, a little less concerned if they don't think they're going to sell that many tickets. But at 257 tickets, we hope that they can go ahead and at least break even. Now, again, it doesn't make a difference what the ticket price is. So if it's a $60,000 show that the Little Wing is bringing in, all that means is they're going to sell one whale of a lot of tickets. And that means Spring Street, Main Street, every street in Eureka Springs is going to have traffic, business, and commerce. So we have to look at the auditorium not necessarily as a generator of economic money. In other words, when we look at our P&L sheet, it looks like, oh gosh, the auditorium lost money again. Maybe it did lose money, but maybe what happened is we put $175,000 into the street that night. And I think that's really what the bottom line is. We are an icon for tourism in the city.
And different bands will pull different kinds of people. I mean, a band that's aging in their 70s now aren't going to be starting at midnight, and those people aren't going to be staying until midnight, The audience that attracts those people, so that's probably going to be less overnight stays, more people driving home and stuff. So that's a little harder to predict, but it's understandable. So to me, this is such a complicated issue because most times venues can just go, how much money we make, what's the bottom line? But in our case, we have to also look at how, the purpose of the CAPC is to draw people to town, to spend money on lodging, food. So we have that other, even larger, purpose to do that and stuff too. I have a couple general questions. One, liability insurance. Is that covered by each promoter, or is that?
Yes, it is. Each promoter is required by law, at least for our bylaws, to have $1 million of liability insurance. Yes.
And that includes anybody falling down the aisle, getting hurt, anything like that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Everybody we work with, including the nonprofits, are required to bring us a certificate of liability insurance.
And then all bands have promoters? I'm just asking. I don't know.
Not really.
Okay.
The good ones do.
Right.
But at least for me, Steve, I don't know that we've really booked anybody in that was sort of like a self-promotion oriented band, unless it was, well, I take it back. The difference is some of the, what do they call them, cover bands, they may be doing their own thing. But we have a real issue with cover bands.
All right.
They don't seem to cover their costs. So
All right.
that's the theory behind $1,000 up front.
Yeah.
If you can't make the $1,000 payment, you need to maybe go someplace else in town to play. There may be a better facility for you to perform at than trying to do it here in the auditorium.
And just a history, that $3,500 flat fee that we came up with in the past was the argument about, should the auditorium be open for 100 people to show up for a show? Is it worth it? How much money? Compared to, 100 people is better than no people, at least the auditorium's being used. So it was that kind of push and shove and question and stuff. Of course, if someone's wants to book it for a small show, but then we have a bigger act showing up, it's like, it should have a priority when it comes to making money and drawing people to town. So.
Usually the theory that we have right now is that, we'll hold a spot for 2 months, but if someone else comes in with that money on top of it, then whoever's got the money is going to take it. Now, there are exceptions to that. If we know who the promoter is, and it's a pretty good bet that show is going to come up in March of 2025, that's okay. But on the same token, if it's something that's going to happen within the next 2 months, and it looks like it's an iffy thing to begin with people we don't know and don't really have a history, and maybe even the artist doesn't have much of a history, we'll take a hard look and determine whether or not that's a viable fit for us. In our defense, we have an instrument called Polestar. Polestar basically is the Bible of what's happening in the music and entertainment business. And we can tell whether a Tim Hawkins comedian of Christian comedy is doing well. And all we have to do is look at the charts, and he's selling out everything he's doing. that's fantastic for us. If they want to book here, we want them. But on the same token, if it is that act that was big in 1973 and had a one-hit wonder, we're not probably as inclined to want to get excited about that, especially if the promoter is a little shady. We've had that happen in the past. I have a brother-in-law with a brother-in-law who has a brother-in-law with a band.
Also, another general question. I know the auditorium ran, 38,000 in the red last year, I think, if I remember right. So is that a goal of ours to break even at least, or is that something we just think, well, the tax will pay for it, and in the long run would make so much money for the, for our community that it's...
In this year, Steve, in 2024, we have poured close to 50...
We're pushing 40K.
40K, and you know what that is? It's your heat and air. We've been picking up the bills for everything that goes on in the auditorium in terms of its maintenance, its air conditioning, these big giant units out here, which MCC continues to have to work on all the time. So we've been funding this thing. Where yes, it is a city-owned building, but we've been spending the money on it.
I was actually looking into that last month. So May financials through January through May, $39,136 on the odd is what the CAP spent. Renovations and upgrades, $8,700. Equipment maintenance and upgrades, almost $14,000. Utilities, almost $1,200. General maintenance, $4,000. And so if you do the math, we're spending $7,600 a month in rent, if you want to call it that, for the auditorium. So I do kind of actually have a couple questions myself. I'm not sure if we have the answers to them, but how many 900-person shows a year do we have?
Very few. We've had one this year.
Yes. And so if we're going to have $173,000 impact once this is the 7th month, are we really being very impactful? I know that we could just book more shows and that would help that. But we also have to realize that a lot of locals go to those 900-person shows, so that $173,000 equals to $5,000 income for the CAPC tax. Is probably closer to $3,500 to $4,000 CAPC tax. So we need to kind of figure out I'd like to see it's $63.50 for a 900-person show is what it costs. What is the cost for a 257-person show?
257 people, what it would cost?
What does it cost us to run the odd for that show?
$6,300.
Just period, no matter how many people are here.
That's right. Yeah, again, it doesn't make a difference what the ticket price is. I mean, if one person comes in or 900 come in, it's the same amount of money because we've got a, number one, skeletal staff regardless of what we do just because of security issues. And then we don't want people wandering around, so we have to provide that security aspect as well. One of our challenges is going to be what do we do with some of our grandfathered shows, of which we have several. Good example is Home for the Holidays. It's something we self-produce every year. We'll have, 400 people show up for it, something like that. It's a free event for the community. We want them to come in. We want them to experience the auditorium. It's the same amount of money. So we basically give it away. The problem is in the month of December, we might have 4 or 5 of those. So we have to really measure, the amount of time that we spend and what we do inside. There isn't much money made in December here, unless it's a promoter that wants to bring in some kind of a Christmas show. That's possible. Right. But to go back to your big point, and you're right, Colin, how many shows have we had that have reached 900? Only one. Why? Is because it's very difficult to get the act in here that will bring in that type of a revenue base for us. Old Crow, which we were showing as you walked in here a while ago, was the example of what it looks like when the place is full. It's a phenomenal auditorium. And when we've got that kind of audience in here, it's an incredible thing. But again, we've got to be able to go ahead and work with our promoters to entice them, that it's going to kill them to come in here. So that's the reason we're trying to come up with an equitable situation here.
And I definitely like the Plan B idea.
Danielle, do you know the concession sales average? Because I know Mike said those are not included in the CA, whatever revenues.
You know, it depends on the audience. When alcohol is sold at, you know, these Little Wing productions and concerts, I would say the average is 1,500, 1,200. I would say the average is around the $1,000 mark. It ebbs depending on the attendance. You know, last year we had Melissa Etheridge, and there were 872 tickets sold there. Amy Grant, prior to her, was at 750 something. And Old Crow just blew us out of the water, you know. So everything else really averaged ticket-wise around the 500 mark. When push came to shove, but we always, depending, like in Blues Weekend, sales are really good, and we're at the 2,000 to 3,000 in concessions. But average $1,000.
I'm not a salesperson, but I know, I think the owner of the Bearville Theater told me she makes no money on the movie. She makes all the money on the popcorn.
That's right.
Anybody else have any questions? Do you know of any other A&P in the country that runs a venue like this as part of the A&P?
No. I was trying to think hard. There's a theater called the Rialto down in southern Arkansas that I think is being renovated by the A&P Commission, but it's an old movie theater, and I can't think of the name of the town right now, but there's only one, and I don't think that they were terribly successful at what they were doing. But they did get money from a historic grant or something like that to go back in and help them redo their theater, and that's about all I know. But at least in our market, with the Northwest Arkansas Tourism Association, there is no such thing.
Any other questions?
How many shows do we have a year on average? Just period, just.
I could only speak for, 2023, and then compared to where we're at right now. We're looking at 6 concerts a year. Prior to that, when we're coming off of COVID, where everything was outside or shut down. So,
We had 6 in 2023.
yes. Yeah. Right off the top of my head. Now I have to go look at the record, give or take a concert. So, yeah.
We started off looking like we were going to have about 20, but then the promotion world took over, and those promoters couldn't deliver what they wanted to do. So consequently, one of our promoters, Little Wing Productions, which is back in business on a full-scale basis, who's already trying to book into 2025, is the only one right now that's actually booked anything. We've got the Folk Festival coming up, which we have also booked independently for one of those acts, along with the Ozark Bound Daredevils we're participating in. So, there's that. But going into the rest of the year, it's going to be pretty much who comes through the front door. For instance, we did get a booking yesterday from the Ozarks Corral. So we have some local things that do come in and out. We'll have the Ignite Dance Studio want to do some things. We may have a beauty pageant that wants to come in. But those are things generally that we don't know well in advance of whether or not they're going to happen. But, we're a dozen maybe at best right now. So,
It'd be nice to find out how many tickets were sold over the whole year divided by the shows so we can get an average. And then maybe include that as part of the conversation. Actually find out how much money the CAPC actually spends per show on average, because we obviously are losing money per show. The market impact is nice, but that's not the average market impact. That's just the
Best
dream.
guess.
Yeah, the golden case scenario. So it'd be nice to find out how many actual tickets were sold and kind of actually put an actual number to it.
you know, the building is an icon, yet the building only works when people are in it. And, you know, that's the rub. Otherwise, we can just take all that money, put it up on billboards and say, you know, look at Eureka Springs from afar, and that'd be great, and feel pretty comfortable spending $50,000. But on the same token, you can't do that just with the building and hope people come in. So, yeah, good point.
Yeah, because I'm thinking off the top of my head, we had Amy Grant, Melissa Etheridge, Robert Cray, Joe Nichols, John McEwen. Who was the dude with the glasses? I can't remember. Dave
Mason.
That's him.
Yeah.
That's it. Dave Mason, and that was 2023. And then the Grand Ole Christmas Show company came in, and we had the Dracula ballet. And those were oh, and then we had Quiet Riot. How can I miss them? They rode in my mom van. Quiet Riot with also Ian Moore, and that was the Bikes Blues Barbecue. So, you know, roughly on average for all of those, the average again was 200 to 400 tickets, with Amy Grant and Etheridge being the exception. They all averaged between 200 to 500. I can't remember out of the Joe Nichols, Robert Cray, and Dave Mason what those were, but they were around that 200 to 400. These, you know, we've already had to turn away. Dracula couldn't afford. The ballet wanted to come back, but they can't afford that flat fee. They would love to bring it back and make it an annual thing. It was a hit, and our artsy crew community really loved them and hung out with the company afterwards and wanted them back. But we weren't able to negotiate anything at the time. We would really love to do so if we're free to do so. But we've got to figure out a wise way to do that. So those are the things that we're looking at.
The Plan C, which is not here, but it has been discussed, and that's for the CAPC to get into the promotion business. We really haven't talked about that other than suggest that in 2024 we did budget $25,000 to bring in an act. We've committed $10,000 of that to pay the Ozark Mountain Daredevils directly, which we sold over 300 and some odd tickets, which is pretty good for, we're 2 months out still, and really haven't started a heavy promotion on it. So the alternative is to do what had been done in the past. It is scary business to do it, as anybody that does this knows, Dave.
Don't look at me.
David, to try to book acts in all the time and hope people show up for them. It's a very, very scary business. On the same token, it can work depending on the act itself. So, we know that if it's a big name, and the Ozark Mountain Daredevils is a good example, 50th farewell tour, a lot of people are excited about it. We've sold tickets. But we also know that the days gone by of the $135 ticket to see Willie is no longer around. We've sold the auditorium out many, 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 many times, sold all 986 seats at a lot of money. But our competition is dramatic. And, we're facing, and I don't know who's playing at the Amp tonight, somebody is. But, they show every night almost. So we've got that. We've got the casinos that we're competing against that bring in big acts. So it's a tough game to be in the music entertainment business. So that's a big step. But it's also a step maybe we should take a look at to determine if there's a chunk of money annually we'd like to try to devote to just that particular cause. And maybe it's once a quarter we try to do something on a bigger level. And I say bigger level in the either participatory level with another promoter, or we just do it ourselves and see how that works. So.
Does anybody out there in the audience want to come up and say anything? Any ideas, suggestions, comments?
So we're talking about bringing in a promoter.
Would you come up with the mic, please? Sorry. And your name, please?
Aspen Bot.
Thank you.
Hey, so you're talking about promoting your own people, bringing in the people. So would the CAPC be promoting? Would they be hiring somebody to promote? And also, what about the weekends where there's not acts booked? Are there other things that we can do to bring in revenue? Maybe like a theater, or, like having movies, or just, different ideas to just bring in people on the weekends to have something to do.
Those are all good ideas. I'll say this about theater. As much as I love theater, I also know what kind of a chore it is to do one. You have to have a staff that's in the building all the time to be able to do that. And therein is the side of the technical side of theater that becomes complicated. Because if you're going to do a show, you're going to want to practice. You're going to want to practice on stage, practice with lights, sound, so forth. That takes the staff, the technical staff, to be able to do that. So that's a big expense. But the other part of that is that we made an investment in a beautiful projection piece of equipment. And if we, in fact, had, for instance, a underwriter to help us, that would be a big step forward. And that may be, the secret word right there is underwriting. The AMP is underwritten by every major corporation in the world. They just are. And that's why they are successful at that. Otherwise, they would not be able to do that. So I think what we're looking at is it's kind of a double-edged sword. We'd love to do that. We just want to make sure that we can go ahead and cover those expenses in order to be able to do it. Would a full-time promoter help? Perhaps. But again, only to the extent that we have the technical staff and the monies to be able to go ahead and support that endeavor, and then to be able to go ahead and do the risk, which is the side of selling the tickets that we hope that we can make, return on the investment. That was one of the reasons in this particular scenario I didn't try to include what ticket costs are, because you could make a lot of money, but you could also lose all your money too. So it's really a double-edged sword. But I like your idea, though, of how can you open it up and make sure that people are coming in even on a weekend.
Yeah.
We have experienced something, I will tell you, though, and this is maybe the sad part of this. We've had a couple of 3 shows where at about 8 o'clock, the promoters have said, just open the doors to anybody. Just let them walk in. And we've had maybe a handful of people come in. They'll stay for 10 minutes and leave. They don't have equity. They didn't buy the ticket, so they're not going to sit there. So sometimes, even if you open the doors, you may be disappointed in what the return on the investment could be. I would like to say that we can open the doors and show movies all the time, but I don't have faith in the product strong enough to suggest that it's going to lure the tourists in to be able to do those things. The other side of that is that we know if it's a local production, locals do come out, and that's a good thing. And we saw that this past year with the Moonlight Sonata program, and it was well attended. But again, the locals will support the locals so long as there's a local act to be able to go see, and that therein is the other part of the scenario too. So.
Yeah.
We love the movies idea. We did the movies at Christmas time, but you've got to pay a $500 per movie showing copyright fee. And so, and that's fine. And it's fun. It goes over well when there is a special occasion to attend the movie. And we were going to try to do that for a summer series, but it just got lost in the shuffle this year.
And one thing we also want to be very cognizant about is putting on too many local things that could happen at other local venues and take away from other business owners in town.
Right. Well, again, I was just, trying to come up with ideas of ways to keep the doors open, to bring the people in, to just have something for them to do.
We appreciate that.
I would love, it'd be great, and ideally, to have somebody that was just focused on, but we're not there yet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle McDonald. I will tell you that old-fashioned Christmas show was phenomenal. I could see us even replicating something. I know they do it 4th of July. They're hilarious. I think that's it covers young and old. It was very, very, very entertaining. I've also been watching the Hallmark Channel, and especially the When Calls the Heart. Is anybody familiar with that series? They have such a following now. They're called the Hardys, and it's a kind of a 1900s story, British Columbia, a teacher and a bounties type thing. And it's gotten a lot of popularity, kind of on the idea of Anne of Green Gables. So my family's from Prince Edward Island, Canada, and they've learned to really make events and even a kind of a layout of what Avonlea would look like, and invite people like from Japan and places because they have such a connection with something like that. And this When Calls the Heart has got a huge, huge following, and it's got a really good story, and it's a town that works together. It's just wonderful. They solved their problems. When there were too many horses and the automobiles started coming into town, they found a way to work with that. And then the other thing I had is I know there is the past drama teacher from the high school has written a musical about Eureka Springs. I think he tried to do something like that with the Five and Dime group or something like that, and it just didn't quite fit their venue. But I was wondering, because I've been to Guthrie, Oklahoma, and a few other places where they at least do a Christmas show. It's every year, the same year. So you start off maybe playing one of the children. This is what Missy Kreider, I think this was her start. She did the Christmas Carol at 10 years old. You know who Missy Kreider is? She became quite a movie star. She had a great voice. At 6 years old, she just wowed the place. It kind of started her on a career. There's a lot of talent in this town. So maybe if there's some kind of a musical about Eureka Springs, and talk to this guy about something we could do maybe a couple times a year, talking about Eureka, because there's a lot of incredible history here. And I know someone that's got a costume shop that could dress them.
Thank you. Okay, any other ideas, suggestions? So you want us to vote on this the next meeting? What option, A or B or C or?
Gee, wow. You actually asked me that question.
We're not just talking here, Mike.
Yeah, I know, and I appreciate that. I think that what I'd like for y'all to do is just to think about this for a week, to make a determination, really what's the most equitable way to approach it, at least from now until maybe the end of the year. The one thing, and Danielle reminded me of this, we never actually voted officially to charge $3,500. We made the discussion to do that. I know that we have wavered from that fee. In fact, we did it just recently. So I think what I'd like to see us do is to go ahead and whether it's A or B or whatever, or a hybrid of one of those, whatever they are, let's make some sort of a discussion about maybe what the deposit's going to be, keep that at least intact, and then how we go ahead and handle the fee structure based upon maybe the $3,500 number. On the same token, $3,500 is attainable depending on how you do this. So it just depends on, which way we want to go.
Okay.
Can we get a copy of your slideshow?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll email it to you just here in a few minutes, as a matter of fact.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I guess we're done with that part of the workshop. We do have another thing on the agenda, CAP's commissioner applications. And Danielle's been nice enough to put us a packet together, 1 through 7. Actually, number 7 is not here. And I think we've been sent that on the computer, though. I saw it somewhere.
Yes, I can do that, most definitely. I just wanted to go ahead and get you what was already turned into the office.
Right.
We are waiting on that applicant 7 to, we got a partial application, and she's having to redo the other part. So when that is done, I can send it on to you all.
Okay. I think we should go ahead and set a deadline this Friday for application so we can,
Okay,
that'd be the...
All right.
That'd be
the 19th.
19th.
The 19th will be the deadline then.
And we have
Okay.
1 or 2 positions, I don't know.
We have 2 positions. One is a regular position, must be a business owner, a lodging or restaurant, or a manager. And then the other one we call, what's it called, at-large?
At-large.
At-large position. And Mike and I went back and forth about our policies not being up to date on who picked that position. But I think we did come down to it's us doing it.
Okay, as of yesterday morning, I had contacted our attorney about that, because if you dig deep into the Arkansas Code, it does speak specifically as to what happens when a at-large position is vacated. It does suggest that it is the will of the commission to find the person they want, then goes to the city government, in this case, the city council. But we've asked Watkins to go ahead and opine on that, just to make sure that we're, in the clear on it. I know initially when A&Ps were set up, it was the mayor, in this case, that selected the at-large position. But that was prior to March of 2023, I believe. 2023, not 2023, but 2003. So there was a difference in the way that the law was interpreted at that time, independent, I guess, on who the Attorney General was at that time. So
basically, we do it the same way we do all the rest of them. We nominate them, vote on them, then the city council
right.
votes on them.
So just 2 clarifying questions. One is the at-large position does not have to be filled by the mayor. It's filled by us and then council approval, correct?
Right.
that's the way the most current Arkansas Municipal League handbook defines it, yes, sir.
Okay, my second question, just a regular CAPC commissioner position, because I get to ask this a lot, do they have to own or manage hotel, lodging, restaurant, or bar? Do they also have to live within the city limits?
Yes.
Okay.
For at least, what's the,
The at-large,
2 years?
the at-large does not have to be a
Within
manager
county.
and does not have to live in the city limits, right?
That's right.
doesn't
That's the
the
difference. The one at-large position
business
was
owner have to be in
vacated by
place
Chris
at least 2
Clifton.
years?
So looking at our applications, Danielle,
That's a good question.
do-
I think it was
is there anything
registered voter.
indicated on here, which ones that are applications for the at-large and which ones are the regular?
So, candidate 7 is the at-large. Candidate 1 can be either or. Candidate 2 is a seat 2. Yeah, I guess they can go for either or, actually.
Danielle, I don't have a 7. Oh, I see what you did. Never mind.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Candidate 3 is either or.
Right.
Candidate 4 is the at-large. Candidate 5 is either or. And candidate 6 is the at-large.
So question about number 4.
75 is the large.
No lodging,
Are you sure?
no restaurant or
It's
bar,
within
correct?
Eureka Springs. It's within Eureka Springs.
So that would eliminate that person, right?
Candidate
you said at
5,
large.
correction, candidate 5 is at large.
Yeah, I started to say, I think that's,
Yeah.
and 7's at large.
Yep.
Okay? And I say this to all the city council members when we are voting on a new commissioner for whatever commission, HDC, planning, cemetery. I take these positions very seriously. They represent the city. They represent all of us. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't bother calling them. They just come to the table and vote. Sometimes you know them, sometimes you don't. I call everybody. I think it's very important for us to vet them, find out why they want to volunteer, what their motivation is, what have they done before. And, I mean, that you only learn so much about a person in a phone interview, but at least it's something, you know. So please do your due diligence and contact these folks and do what you think you need to do to feel good about whoever you want to nominate.
Steve,
What-
may I add to that I have asked, when possible, I'd like to also talk with each one of the candidates so that they understand, you know, clearly what the CAPC is doing on the business end.
Right.
That way they can get a sense of, you know, what our staff is doing and how we go about it.
Right. And I also personally believe that our commission should represent the city, you know, whatever that means in Eureka Springs. That's like, so there's questions I don't ask because it's like that's not pertinent. It's more the motivation is more important. Do they have the time? Do they understand what they're getting into? You know, and we appreciate anybody applying that's going to apply. So the way this happens, and Mr. Clifton at our last meeting said, hold up, don't you want to talk about each applicant? We have never done that. We have never sat here and went through the applications and go, hey, Colin, what do you think about David? You know, it's like, we don't do that. That'd be very kind of shady to do that, and don't want to insult anybody or throw shade on their character. So only thing we do is when we present it, we'll say, well, we'll open the floor for a nomination. So if you have somebody you think is a good candidate for one of these two positions, then you nominate them. And then if someone also thinks they're a good candidate, they'll second it, and then we'll go for a vote. If they get 4 votes, they're on the commission. So if you don't get a second, it stops there. If you don't get 3 votes, it stops there. Thank you for applying. But there's no rhyme or reason in who's nominated first. It's kind of like open the floor for nomination. So if you have somebody you think is a good candidate, you speak up. So we're not going to go down the list of what do you think about this person, ... So, but Mr. Clifton wanted to open it up for discussion, all the 4 applicants at the time. That's never been our practice to do that. No commission does that I know of, so make that clear. Any questions about that? No. Okay. We also have agenda item, Mr. Jim Viola. Jim, you want to step up? Yeah. I'm sorry.
Did we want to ask, I know one of the applicants is here. Did we want to see if they wanted to say anything?
Oh, sure.
2 here.
Got 2 here? Okay, yeah. I mean, I'd like to give them an opportunity just to at least say hello.
Oh, that would be nice.
Miss Aspen, yeah.
Hello. Your name?
Aspen
Address?
Vaught,
You live here in town?
I do.
Okay. You want to tell us something about yourself, why you want to be on the commission?
Yes, so I have Blessed Bohemian Properties, and I've been in property management for 4 years now. And, you know, this town really means a lot to me, and the locals, it's like, it's a small community, but also what's so unique about this town is the fact that we bring in a lot of people from different areas. And, you know, I just want to be a part of the promotion of the town and, you know, why it is that people want to be here. And so I'm a believer that if I think that there needs to be change, then I should be a part of it, if I'm going to even have a discussion about it. So that's really where I'm coming from, is that, you know, if change needs to be had, then I just want to offer my services and gifts. And I have marketing experience. And yeah, does anybody have any specific questions?
So did you see our last meeting? Are you sure you want to do this?
Well, that's exactly what Danielle asked me. And
Don't go looking for it.
I do take really big risks, and I'm not afraid to do that. So, you know, I'm not afraid
Okay,
of
great, thank you.
the job.
And you're open to getting phone calls from all of us?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
What's the
Yeah,
best time
I
to
would like
reach
that. You know, during the weekdays, it's fine. During the work week is great.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank
So,
you.
Okay.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jim, I think you're also an applicant?
Yeah. I got a lot to say, so
Go ahead.
I've actually scripted this. Last time I was here, I wasn't prepared, so. Anyways, first I know this is a workshop, but I wanted to share some inspiration. I'm all about inspiration. Here's inspiration number one, and I picked it up from Missy's. Do not let people allow you to dim your shine, because they are blinded. Tell them to put on sunglasses. We were born their way. That's inspiration one. I see smiles because that's what I like. Inspiration two. Bradley, you're loud. This is mine. Be kind. Be fair. Be honest. Be true. All these things will come back to you. What goes around comes around. I am new to these meetings. I've only attended 2 meetings, and they were pretty exciting. I learned how the town gets together and gets rid of bad toxins. I can't even read my own writing. Anyways, I wanted to say we have a great team in Maloney and his staff. I wanted to compliment him. Then I wanted to pass this on because if I read this, I may break down in tears. I'm too emotional. So this is something that I received from the CAPC and our new advertising agency. So,
Mention your lodging. Mention your lodging.
I would.
So
I'm not done.
the marketing team met with Eureka Jim as one of the locals that they interviewed, getting to know the community. They interviewed several, and he was one of. And so they said, thanks to your expert guidance, exploring the fun and funky streets of Eureka Springs was an absolute delight. Every moment was filled with discovery and excitement, from the quirky shops to historic landmarks to the beautiful outdoors. Your passion for this unique destination shines through in every recommendation and anecdote you share. Your enthusiasm, knowledge, and hospitality made our visit memorable. Seeing Eureka Springs through your eyes helps us understand its charm and character, and for that, we are eternally grateful.
I went to the post office, and that was in I went to my mailbox, and that was in the mail, so it was pretty emotional to me. So, anyways. So I wanted to share with you a little about me, because I know you see my Jeep cruise into town, and I'm not doing all crazy stuff, so let me just share some things with you, okay? I moved from Dallas, Texas, and I am retired here now 11 years. I have 45 years experience in the grocery business. I prided myself on #1 in sales, #1 in profits, #1 in merchandising. Great with people, you have to be if you're in that business. I loved contests because I won contests. My theme, go big or go home. First, or you lose. I live in beautiful Eureka West, Inspiration Point. I have lodging facing the new Opera House they're building. This Friday is the last opera at the old Opera House. The new Opera House is supposed to open in March next year. It is going to be huge for our town. It's going to be open 10 months a year. It's just going to be amazing. And I've been watching it since day one when they put the big crane up, because my lodging faces the opera. How did I come up with Eureka Gym? It's created a monster. I had guests at my lodging one day call me Eureka Jim because they liked the way I took care of them. So what did I do? I adopted the name. I put the name on my cheek. It's on the roll bar where the lights are because I can't use the lights. They're too bright. It'll light the town up. And when I come into town, the guests see me as a Eurekan, sharing fun. They see my ducks. They hear quack, quack. It causes many photo ops. I literally have to pull over sometimes. They want to take pictures, and I do it. And hope nobody's pissed off at me behind me. But I do it. Hey, I do it. I started the Eureka theme back in December, engaging with guests. So not only do I share things, I think a few of you seen, I dress up with Michelle, and when they see us dressed up, it goes to another notch. To sum it up, I enjoy guests, locals, and I love seeing smiling faces. When I create a smiling face, it hits my heart, makes me feel good. I wanted to share one other thing. So I walk in town with my special bag. I call it my promotional bag. It's called Be Peace, Be Love, Be Kind. I'm not going to share everything in here. There's too much. But when I give this sheet to the guests visiting our town, they love it. And I get this from Kate. She prints these up for me, and I'm talking about, I got 100 copies. And sometimes I have to go back and get more. So I share these with the guests. I share it with businesses I know because they can plan around it. And I tell the guests, this is by the week and by the month to the end of the year. The reason I do this is to get repeat guests coming back. So think about it if you're telling them, all these events you're not going in September, they might be interested. October, December. So this right here is like this is my favorite sheet, but I'm not going to get into everybody else I promote. It's too long. I love to promote. And what I get in return, I get paid nothing, but what I get is it makes me feel good. That's all I want. I'll leave you with this. We are blessed to live in Eureka. Like I said, I moved from Texas. Eureka, we are blessed. One last thing, and I always tell people, we are in heaven. And my strength, all my strength, my enthusiasm comes from one person. He's my driving force. And then, guess one last thing. What I'm doing is, it's my calling. Because when I retired from what I was doing, I was going to come here and be a Walmart greeter. So I like what I'm doing instead of that. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much.
So you moved here to be a Eurekan greeter.
What's that?
You're Eurekan greeter.
I'm the Eureka Greeter. I'm a walking billboard.
I call him Ambassador Jim.
Cool. That's very cool. All right. Anybody else have anything else they want to say or add? If not, we are done for today. Thank you very much.
Okay. I need signatures on checks and contracts, and there's a group sales folder that we really want y'all to see what has been designed. I say we, Caitlin and Jana have been busting it to design these cards, these stat sheets to be given out and promoted at the upcoming exhibits that Jana will be attending to represent Eureka.
All over the United States.
Yeah. So we
I
want
mean,
y'all
from
to
St.
see
George,
what-
Utah to Dallas to Cincinnati. I mean, she's on the go.
Good,
Yeah.
cool.
Very much so.
You gave me one contract that nothing's filled out. I don't know if you know.
Thank you.